Welcome to the video, guys. This story we got here is actually rage-inducing and goes back to other videos I've made about the state of the NHS and more importantly GPs over the past year. Yes, they have been pretty bad for many years after being overrun with patients thanks to government policy letting in half the world its mother and their aunt. Now though, it's a complete disaster with waiting lists spiralling out of control and diversity and inclusion managers costing 70k a year. This has been made exponentially worse by the total triage system put in place last year, allowing doctors to fob off patients over the phone. As many will know, it's cost us a lot of lives during the past 14 months that it was in place and is still doing it now. Because, as I covered the other day, many doctors are still not seeing patients face to face. The numbers actually show that pre-2020 GPs had an 80% face-to-face appointment ratio. This is now down to 54% and staying there because it's the same as in May or June this year. Well, to top that off, we also had some grade A wanker claiming just over half of all appointments taking place face-to-face is about right. Yes, the total arsewipe actually said that. Obviously, it's completely ignoring the fact that people have died to this thanks to the telephone access bullshit and will do the longer it continues to go on. Now he also moans about doctors getting abused, which shouldn't be happening really, but people's health is obviously important to them, and their taxes pay the wages of these doctors, so I can't say I'm surprised that people are not happy. The Telegraph actually states, doctors suffering wave of abuse over lack of face-to-face appointments. Head of Royal College of GPs says current situation with just over half of appointments taking place in person is about right.
Yes, I think you made the point earlier about many GP services feeling that they could not sustain face-to-face appointments for everyone that wanted them because of the pressure on GPs. I think for many patients, they feel that a phone appointment is actually not a substitute for a face-to-face appointment. Do you accept that that's the case?
Yes, I do, absolutely. And I think it's very important. I talk to colleagues who perhaps in more progressive practices that started using remote methods of consulting way before the pandemic, maybe 5 years ago. And almost invariably they say that despite being progressive practices, well organised, it took 2 or 3 years for their staff and their patients to get used to behaving in a more remote way. Now, general practice across the board introduced remote working in 2 or 3 weeks in March of last year. So it's hardly surprising that it's taking time for both clinicians and patients to get used to it. But I do suspect that patients will get used to it. I don't think we're going to go back to 80% of consultations in general practice being face-to-face.
Yes, like I said, some tosspot actually said that and seems to think it's okay. But essentially you will get used to piss-poor care and being fobbed off by lazy taxpayer-funded doctors working 3 days a week. Now apparently these tosspots are not even paid by how many patients they actually see or treat. They make their money based on how many patients they have on the books that they're failing to treat. Which maybe explains why that tit said the public would have to get used to it and all of that. They're all getting paid regardless and clearly taking the piss out of us. I, like many others, have family members now sentenced to death because the NHS failed to see or treat them for over a year. Am I meant to just get used to that, you wanker? How about you go and fuck yourself? In fact, maybe doctors will have to get used to the public giving them shit for their constant failures and now failure to treat people in person. But the Telegraph also states the BMA said claims that GPs were refusing face-to-face appointments were dangerous and inaccurate. Before 2020, around 80% of consultations were face-to-face, but in recent months, levels have remained at around 56%, despite NHS guidance in May which gave patients the right to see a GP in person and told doctors to respect their preference, something many doctors are still not doing. It goes on, in a letter to Mr. Javid, the BMA Council chairman said GPs were using telephone, video and online consultations to assess patients and still providing face-to-face consultation when this is needed. Sorry dumbass, this is always needed every single time. To really know what is wrong with someone, a doctor needs to see them in person if you ask me. A phone call is not going to do shit as we have seen over the past year. But maybe the BMA is right to say we shouldn't say GPs are refusing to treat patients. Maybe we should say it like it is and say GPs are being paid not to treat patients in person, something I've actually covered before. What is it, £100 per time they deal with it over the phone or on the internet? So refusing might well be wrong. Incentivised not to seems closer to the reality we are actually living in. My question is, why is this happening? This tit, though, if you ask me, needs to wind his neck right in. People should not be getting used to anything at the end of the day. Doctors should be seeing patients and helping them whenever they can, not fobbing them off at any opportunity. These people pay the wages of these doctors at the end of the day. For now, though, that's all I have on this story we've got here. Remember to check out the links down below to support the channel on other platforms, and I'll see you all in the next one.